Darkness falls, and with it, the truth emerges. In a world where the line between fact and fear is blurred, beneath the surface of forgotten towns and restless graves, hide secrets soaked in blood and whispers that never die. From the chilling depths of true crime to the unexplained shadows of the paranormal, we dive into the stories that haunt both past and present. Welcome to Realm of Darkness.
Yeah, Ashley, we made it. It's working. You're a little blurry, but I could see you. Oh no,
There we
here
go.
she is.
I was like, I can't see us.
Listen, it's been a few
Jeez.
weeks, so we're allowed to have a little hiccups here.
Well, it's been a couple weeks and it's like our computers and stuff just don't want to work anymore. I'm not really sure why everything
Nope.
is lagging.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. It'll be entertaining though.
Yes. It will be.
Anyway, it has been a couple weeks. So how have you been?
I've been good. I've been sick a lot.
Yeah.
It's that time of year. The sickness is rampant. So if you hear me coughing every once in a while, don't mind me. I'm still here.
Well,
What about you? How was the
you-
holiday?
It was good. It was really good. It's been busy.
Yeah.
Things they've been going. That's for sure. They've
Things have
been going.
going.
They've been going. So I have to say, I'm happy to be back because I feel like this is therapy for me. But then,
Mhm.
I know we have a show next week, which we have an amazing guest on.
Yes,
So
we have one
I'm
lined up.
excited. Yeah. So Carlo will be on next week.
Mm.
And then after that, we have a break because of the holidays.
Yeah.
So
Our show seems to fall on the all the holidays this year because Thanksgiving was on Thursday. Obviously, it's always on a Thursday.
yeah.
But Christmas and New Year's Day are both on Thursday. So yeah. So you'll see us this week, next week, and then we'll disappear for a couple more weeks again.
Yeah.
You'll see us at some point.
Well, and I feel like when we plan this, because we had a show every single Thursday, and we're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to do every other Thursday because we got a lot of footage we have to go through. And then it was like, oh, every other Thursday is a holiday. So it's just kind of been funny. But it did give us time to do research and kind of look into the case that we're covering tonight, which if you're from Ohio, it's a very well-known case. I know it was kind of newer to you, but it's an insane one. And it has so many different aspects. There's family, there's hatred, there's love, there's murder, it's just absolutely insane. And probably one of the most notorious, we'll say, mass murders in Ohio.
It's the biggest one for sure. That's what I found out when I was researching and stuff.
So before we get into it, I kind of want to know your opinion. Like when you were doing the research and seeing, because when everything first came out about the case, and I know you started from the beginning, and before we start from the beginning, there's a lot to it and there's a lot of different layers. So once you really figured out what happened and got kind of the solidified evidence, what'd you think?
Well, I mean, initially just looking through this stuff, I'm like, because I kind of did it in order from like the actual events to, them finding out who did it. And I'm like, how do they even like get to a certain, because there were so many things that were going on at this place that kind of threw you off onto a different, like, well, what if it's this? What if it's that? And then to come through and like, figure it out here in the end. And it's just crazy. I mean, it's one of those things where, it was right there in front of you the whole time, kind of, sort of, but it wasn't at the same time. So,
and this is one of the cases that after we get through it and we start kind of digging into the nitty gritty details, I have to say, like, the police really did a good job with this case. because it could have gone a million different ways. And for anybody who hadn't seen the post on Facebook and what we're covering, and I'm sorry if I'm lagging because I can see myself not lining up perfect. So we're just going to roll with it and see what happens. So the case that we're talking about is the Pike County Massacre. And this is a case that it was back in April of 2016, but it included 8 murders, 4 locations, 1 night, 3 innocent children, and an entire family slaughtered.
Yeah. One whole family basically wiped out. Completely.
One whole family. Yes. So on April 21st/22nd, we'll say, because I think the murders occurred on the 21st. They weren't found until the 22nd.
Yeah. The phone calls from the 911 call was that morning around 7 a.m. the 22nd. So yeah, somewhere between the night of the 21st, the morning of the 22nd, all of it went down.
So do you think, before we get into the case, do you think we should play the call first?
Honestly, that might be a good starting point. Because
then that kind of gets, I don't want to say the juices flowing because that sounds really creepy, but it kind of gets the thought process flowing.
So, I think that's a good idea.
So we do have the 911 call for you guys. We're going to play that. And then when you're listening to this, please keep in mind that this person had just come across the first initial crime scene. There's a lot more to it, and we'll dig into that, but we're going to play this for you. So just give me 1 second. If my computer cooperates, we'll see. It's thinking about it.
Technology.
Well, it's trying to put the call on the screen.
Gotcha. Nothing.
It's coming. I can see it.
Okay.
Or you can just start talking about the case until, there we go. Okay.
I'll just do some dancing over here until it starts.
Is it playing?
Not yet.
Okay.
Maybe.
Hold on.
I don't hear anything.
See, this is what happens when the internet goes out. It also doesn't help that it's snowing ridiculously here. So we're going to give it another try.
Okay. If not, we'll go. We love technology.
I don't think it's gonna work.
No, that's all right. We don't need it. I can't hear anything other than you.
We're gonna try something different. Oh, anyway, start talking about the case, and I'm gonna see if I can.
Okay.
Maybe
so
work this
on
out.
The morning of the 22nd, about 7 a.m. or so, this woman goes to these people's house to feed their animals. I'm not sure, if it was the sister of the one victim, Dana Roden. But she gets into the house and notices right away like something's off. She walks, and I believe it was in the living room. Oh, maybe
it's thinking about it. Can you see it yet?
I can see it, yeah.
Yay, here we go.
Not hearing anything though. Well, I could see it, but I don't think we can hear anything, which is fine.
Well, we're gonna X-nay that idea.
Yeah, we'll just. So this lady, she called 911, and that was the call. So just imagine the 911 call going on.
We'll post it on Facebook here shortly.
We could post the video after. So, but yeah, she goes in after she goes to feed the animals and goes in the house, and that's when she starts to see on a small scale would have happened at that point because it was only one of the locations. But she calls and says that basically her brother-in-law is dead. It looks like he was shot in the head. And that's where the call comes, and then the police come and find out just how awful it really was. So
yeah.
The go ahead. Yeah. The location, there was multiple buildings on that property, correct?
Yeah. So what happened is she walked in, she saw that her brother-in-law had been shot, and she didn't know the extent of she didn't understand the extent of what had truly happened. Once the police show up, they do kind of search all the properties because they don't have a suspect at this point. They didn't really know what happened. And the ones that were found due to the call were all shot execution style. Yeah, so it was a very
basically up close, personal shots to the head. Most of them were shots to the head with a gun of some sort. So
yeah. So they really kind of jumped into it really quickly. And what they ended up finding out is there were 4 different locations that this had taken place. And across the 4 locations, there had been 8 total murders. Each person was shot execution style and with a silencer. So that's why nobody knew until a family member showed up the next morning.
They assumed right off the bat because of how nobody heard anything or woke up. Like, somebody had some kind of silence weapon. They didn't know for sure until later on, but I mean, you're in a house with people and there's people in the building next door. To not hear anything would make you think right away somebody knew what they were doing, or they were totally planned did the planning and made sure nobody could hear anything. So
yeah. And then with the members that were shot, which I'm going to kind of give you the list of them, with the members that were shot, the police instantly were like, okay, they had to know these people. It wasn't a random act of violence. But among the victims, and I'm going to read them so that I don't mess them up, was Christopher Roden Sr., and he was 40 years old. There was Dana, which was his ex-wife, Hannah, who was 19, Clarence, who they called Frankie, who was 20, Christopher Jr., who was 16, Ken, who was 44, and he was actually the older brother of Christopher, the dad. And then Gary, who was 38, he was a cousin. And then Hannah Gilly, who was 20 years old, and she was actually the fiance of Frankie. But the crazy thing about this, too, is not only were all 8 of them murdered in 4 different locations, but when the police arrived, they found 3 young children that were fine. They weren't touched. They weren't, there was no bruising, no nothing. So it was, and they were kind of in a back bedroom. So I know the police did kind of think that that's why whoever this murderer was had to know the family, because somehow they got into all these homes with all these people in them. They took the children, put them into a back bedroom to keep them safe before they executed these people. And the children were 3 months old, 6 months old, and then a newborn baby. But they were found alive and unharmed.
The baby was only 3 days old. Like, that's how newborn we're talking, 3 days. So I did read, though, the 3-day-old was found in the bed with the mother, Hannah. So it was still trying to the baby was awake when they got there and everything like that, trying to feed and stuff like that, which is awful to know. Who knows how long that was going on, but.
And they did say too that they think that the person who did this placed the baby next to the mom to stop the baby from crying. If they go as far enough to put silencers on these guns, they thought that a crying baby would draw attention, especially if it's going on and on. So they did place the baby next to her as the smell of a mother trying to soothe her. And it was just, the police were dumbfounded, and they were kind of because this is the biggest massacre that Ohio had seen, even up to date.
I was going to say, even of all time in Ohio right now, it's the biggest thing.
Yeah, even, to have 8 members of one family just executed. So like you said, on April 22nd, the first bodies were discovered. And once the sheriffs kind of confirmed that it was a multiple homicide, they actually deployed over 100 investigators to start looking into this case, because they knew right away it was one of the most complex in the state.
Yeah.
So they had everybody from like the Bureau of Crime Investigation, they had FBI, they had local agents, they had detectives. So really they pulled in kind of everyone to help try to solve this case.
And initially they weren't getting a whole lot, or they weren't releasing a whole lot, because you still have other family members out there that, you know, now are like living in fear because hey, 8 of my other family members were just murdered. Like, who's to say I'm not next at that point? So they kept everything pretty tight-lipped for the first little bit. They didn't want, just for safety reasons in the grand scheme of things, because I couldn't imagine my family being murdered and then me being still around in that area. Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy to think about.
Yeah, and to think like you're not mourning 1, but mourning 8. And then also you have these babies who now, who's gonna take care of them? They have to be, you know, put into different homes. And then I know too, like the investigators were worried about family members stepping up to take the babies because they had no suspects at this time. And when they started doing their investigation, because of the gratitude of it, they started looking at everything. And one of the things they found on the properties was like 3 major marijuana grow operations. Yeah. And with the way the killings happened, with the number of people that were killed, and with the marijuana growing, they initially thought that this was like a cartel hit or some kind of drug deal gone bad.
Yeah. And based off, because I don't know the laws in Ohio. Obviously, here in New York, it's legal now, but it might not have been then. But I don't know what the laws are in Ohio. You'd have to kind of, like, if it's illegal to grow that or whatnot.
So in 2016, it was all still very illegal. You know, people were still driving up to Michigan, but so it was very illegal. So they did think the cartel had something to do with it, but then it wasn't too long before they really kind of ruled the cartel out, and they shifted the focus more toward personal relationships, because again, when they started doing this investigation, and you know, one of the things they did, which is kind of cool, and I had never really heard of a case doing this, is the locations that the murders took place were in trailer homes. The investigators actually took the entire trailer, all 4 of them, and took them and kind of sealed them and guarded them off so that they could do their investigating without any kind of tampering.
Yeah, they actually picked them up and moved them into like warehouses and stuff, right?
Yes.
So like nobody could get in and out other than the people that needed to be in and out. So
yeah, and it's probably a good thing they did that, because that is kind of how they realized that there was really no forced entry. There was nothing broken. There was nothing stolen. So it showed that it wasn't a robbery. It showed that whoever came into the house had to be known by the family, because it wasn't like, you know, the doors and windows were broken off.
They were invited in from all sites of it anyway.
Yeah, and that is also when they started realizing that it probably had to be more than one assailant, because there were numerous people in each location.
We did mention one of the murders was 3 miles down the road, even. So there were the bulk of them were all right there in that little area, because they were all multiple houses and stuff in that area. But one of the family members was a few miles away. So for all of it to be, you know, one person is kind of tough in one night, I would think.
Well, and I think, I can't remember the exact time frame, but I want to say that when they were doing the investigation, they realized that the time of death for all of them, because, you know, you can tell by blood clotting and things like that, that the time of death for all of them were like a matter of 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah. So
it was
when you start thinking more than one person at that point.
Yeah, there's no way to hit that many spots that many people in, less than 10 minutes. It's insane.
Yeah.
And then it was more toward May, December too, is when they finally they took all the cell phones, they took all the surveillance hardware, they took all the vehicles that the family had owned, weapons, because the families did have weapons.
Yeah.
And they've really started focusing on people close to the family. And one of the families that they started focusing on was the Wagner family.
Yes. So one of the things I thought was interesting too, and I didn't really think about until I heard something about phone records and stuff like that and how they use that and whatnot. The phone records didn't help as much in this case because being in a small town, everybody's on the same tower. So you didn't really get much out of that because, everybody's right there using the same tower anyway. So, but yeah, like, they were watching videos and stuff like that. And that's kind of how they started digging deeper into certain people and whatnot.
Yeah, and one of the reasons they started looking at the Wagner family is because there was actually a current custody dispute going on between Jake Wagner and then Hannah. They were, I don't know if they were in and out of court or if they had just started the custody battle, but it was ongoing when these murders took place. So, anytime there's, well, not a whole family, but anytime there's a murder, they normally start with the people closest. And they always say, do you know of anybody that would want to hurt them? And a custody battle, that kind of, that's been motive time and time again. So they did start looking at Jake and his family.
Which right away, they, start looking at them. And one of the things I saw was, kind of if it was me and all of this going on, leaving and going to the other side of the country, probably not the smartest idea to make yourself look innocent,
Yeah. No, I was hoping you were going to bring that up.
They all packed up and went to Alaska from Ohio.
Yes. Well, and the funny thing is, it's not funny, but everybody in Ohio, and I can say that because I live in Ohio, we don't move, but we always complain about the winners. And you're right. The Wagners, they were questioned. They weren't considered suspects yet, but they were questioned just like everybody else.
They came in for interviews. They did all that stuff. And then, all right, we're going to Alaska.
And then and it was like a few days after they had been questioned, the entire family packs up and moves to Alaska. And when they started doing the investigation on that, they realized that had not been a previously planned vacation or move. It was a last minute, get your stuff and go. So if you're trying to put I'm guilty on your chest, moving to Alaska is probably the best way to be like, maybe I'm not the most innocent person.
Well, I did see that Jake had said that, and to me, I kind of understood why, if that was the legit reason. He said he wanted to get their daughter, who now he had custody of because, the mother was murdered, away from that, so she didn't have to grow up around all that and that story and that news and all that stuff, which makes sense logically, but
she was so little that at that time. And even think back in 2016, social media wasn't the way it was. It was news outlets, it was watching TV, things like that. But with her being so young, she wouldn't have been. Yeah, she wouldn't have been exposed to that anyway. And I do agree. I would take my kid out of that situation, but I would go to like Indiana or South Carolina. Alaska would not be the area of choice. And it was one of the things I found interesting is that it was hundreds and hundreds of interviews that they had done. And when they finally started kind of putting together a suspect list, they had like thousands of tips. They had done hundreds and hundreds of interviews. They had, I think I saw like 800 plus pieces of evidence that they had tested and ran. And they had like 200 to 300 different subpoenas, warrants, all that stuff. So they were really diligent about making sure that they were following the right tracks. And it wasn't until 2 years later, and this is after, they found the marijuana, they discredited that. There was, Nate wants me to say it so bad. And now that Brandon's on, there were rumors.
I thought I can't say it with a straight face.
There was rumors that the family was running cockfights, and they thought that maybe that had to, Nate, be mature. But there were, there was evidence of cockfights happening. So they thought maybe that had something to do with why people were murdered, owing money and things like that.
There's all these other things going on, and like it makes these other things seem more likely, but at the end of the day, it wasn't any of that. So
yeah. And it was 2 years later, after all this evidence and all that stuff, that they finally announced that they were going to arrest not one, not two, but how many members of the Wagner family.
So they ended up arresting, well, technically 5. Yeah, 5. 4 of them, 6. Oh, I missed one.
Yep. They arrested a total of 6 members of the Wagner family. Not all were charged, but they arrested 6 of them and brought them in for interrogation.
Yes.
So there was 4, and you're right, there were 4 that were arrested for murder and 2 that were arrested for like obstruction, perjury.
Stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't anything as, I don't want to say as bad, but it wasn't murder. And the members that were arrested, which is insane. I'm going to read these off too, because
there's a lot.
This family,
when I was doing the research, there's a lot of names. It was hard to keep track.
Well, and as soon as you sent that to me, I'm like, I'm going to type the names out to make sure we don't, because there's a lot of, same names and things like that. But this family is, I guess when they say we ride together, we kill together, whatever, this family really took it to the grave. But they arrested George, who was called Billy, and he was the father of the family, the Wagner family. They arrested Angela, who was the mother of the Wagner family, George Jr., who was the older son. Then they arrested Jake, who had the baby with Hannah, and he was the younger son. But then they also arrested Rita Newcomb, who was Angela's mother. So this was Jake's grandmother. And then they also arrested, I think I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but her name's Frederica.
I think that's right. Yeah.
That was the other grandma. So they arrested both grandmas. Now, the charges on Frederica were later dropped. And I see why she was arrested, but I also see why the charges were dropped. She was originally arrested because there were receipts of her buying bulletproof vest, which when your family when your family gets arrested for murder and you have receipts of bulletproof vests, I see why you're being arrested. But they did do their research, and they pulled the receipts, and the vests were actually purchased after the murders took place. So the charges against her were dropped.
Yeah, which is crazy because, like, I was reading that the family had plans, like if things went south, they had to be ready. And I mean, I could see where they could still get her on something because she's buying that just in case. But I don't know. Maybe she didn't know. She might not have known any of it. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know, because I do feel...
Who knows what,
Yeah, and now, again, this is not something I read or even, like, glimpsed, but I feel there was, like, a family meeting or something. You know, like, this would not have been planned and executed, like, via text. And back then, I mean...
Well, no, because that would have been easy to find then. Those phone records and stuff like that would have showed all that stuff, so...
Yeah. So I'm thinking I feel like they had a family meeting. They got together. They planned it because I think it was planned for a while. You know, if this was just heat of the moment, we're all angry, we're going to go kill this family, silencers wouldn't have been purchased. You know, it doesn't make sense. So I think it was definitely premeditated. And I think little old grandmas might have had a part in it.
Yeah, I think the one for sure I think did, but I'm not sure if this other one that bought the vest had any clue.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe Granny might have been in on it too. She might have been rolling.
Well, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
So when they arrested them, they were all back in Ohio, correct? They moved back in from Alaska.
Yes.
They arrested them like on the same day, but in like 3 different places.
Yes.
There
Well,
was some up north, some right in that area, and then the one guy, the young son who was Hannah's
Jake. Yeah.
ex-boyfriend, Jake, was arrested in Lexington, Kentucky, driving a horse buggy. Did you see that? What the?
He was trying to go off the grid.
Yeah,
but
he was trying to live off grid. It didn't work, but
and the reason I said in the beginning that I think the cops did a really good job on this case is because before they even arrested them, they had mountains of evidence against this family. So what the Wagners didn't realize is the cops were actually surveilling them. They were watching their phones. They were watching their movements. They were watching their habits. And that is kind of, along with the custody battle, that is kind of how they started piecing things together. And when they were digging deeper into before the murders happened, ironically, they also saw that the Wagner family was surveillancing the Rhodes family. They said that they had, been kind of following them, watching their habits, seeing who goes where at what time, so that it could be planned out. And that's another reason a lot of the investigators and even the court said this was premeditated. You literally followed a family around for weeks to know their time, their schedule. This is 100% premeditated. But then after they were arrested, like I said, Rita, which was Angela's mom, she took a plea deal. So she took a plea deal. She didn't want to avoid, or she wanted to avoid jail. She did not want to go. And she did admit to lying to the police and trying to cover things up. But she said that it was only after the fact, that she had no part in planning the murders. She had no part in buying any of the supplies. So the charges for her, because the police actually could not tie her to any of the plans, execution, any of it. So her charges were dropped as well. So both grandmas. And I think they both got dropped. I think one of them ended up on probation, but that was it. No jail time.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that came out was the custody situation. That ended up being the main motivator behind all of it. They tried weeks before they carried this over. They tried to have Hannah sign over her parental rights, and she didn't want any part of it because, who would? You're a mother. And that's kind of where the whole plan started coming together at that point, because they're like, well, if you're not going to give it to Hannah even said, I'd rather die than give you my rights. And ultimately, that's kind of, I guess, the spark that lit the fuse on the whole situation.
Yeah.
Because I believe, Jake went back and he's like, I think we're gonna have to kill this, what? And I don't know if he said that initially as a joke, but it didn't stay a joke long, and that's kind of what happened. So then they all get arrested, and
and I assume too, with his parents, if he's coming home and this wasn't like a 50-50 custody, it was an all or nothing. So with Jake having the possibility of losing his parental rights, I'm sure he went home. Grandma and grandpa, which would be his mom and dad, were probably upset too, because now this baby isn't going to know their family. And from what I read, Hannah had no plans on letting the baby be a part of their family. After researching this case, I kind of see why. She might have had an idea that they were kind of off their rockers. So I, as a mother, I would also keep my children from a family like that.
You gotta do what you gotta do, protect your kids.
Well, and then the bad thing about this is, so yes, these four people were arrested, and when they were arrested, it was right around the same time as COVID. So there were like ongoing battles between prosecution and the attorneys and the courts because things were getting shut down. So a lot of these like court dates and trials got pushed out all the way to 2021 and a little bit later too. In fact, which we'll get to, one of them is still pending today.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost, how many years later. So Jake Wagner was arrested, and he was arrested, I want to say, almost on the anniversary. I want to say like 5-year anniversary.
It was 5 years, yeah.
That's it. Yeah, it was like April of 21. And he was arrested, and he actually pled guilty to 8 counts of aggravated murder, along with several other charges. However, he agreed to testify against his own family. Yeah. Did you read that?
So what I saw is he ended up, after obviously they arrested everybody and you're not allowed to talk to anybody anymore. Yeah. They're all separated. And the one thing I watched, they said he basically cracked under the pressure. Nobody was talking. Nobody was saying much of anything. And he eventually, just from being alone and not knowing what everybody else was doing, cracked. Yeah. And he took a plea deal and said, yes, he admitted to killing 5 of the 8 and then shooting a 6th one.
Yes.
And then, doing all the planning and stuff like that. He took a plea deal in order to avoid the death penalty. He didn't want, and then he agreed to testify against everybody as long as the death penalty in their cases got taken out too, I believe. But I don't think that actually ended up totally happening. But
so he did. He took the plea deal so that he wouldn't face the death penalty. And you're right, he was the very first one to crack. I don't know if you saw any other pictures, but he also is not a very intimidating looking guy.
No, he's a scrawny little.
So I don't think prison was doing well for him. No. We'll leave it at that. Yeah. But he actually agreed to testify against his mother and his father and his brother. But initially, he only agreed to have the death penalty removed from his mother and his father, which I found interesting. Your brother's willing to kill for you, and you're not going to remove the death penalty from his possible sentencing. But
whatever, dude, you're on your own.
Yeah. But like you said, he cracked and he told everything. He laid it out. He said who did what, who killed who, how it was planned, how it was arranged, I mean, he was like everything. In prison. He was the epitome of a rat, 100% snitched on his whole family, which is BS because they got into this mess because of him.
Yep. And then he went ahead and exposed everything to the point, like details that the police didn't even know. Like he told them how, they dyed their hair a different color so that, they wouldn't look as noticeable to these people.
Yeah.
He told them where they hid the silencers in buckets of cement that, the police then eventually could go and uncover and find as well. Like all of this stuff, the silencers they made homemade, all this stuff. He spilled the tea. He told them everything.
Which in reality is a good thing because now there's no possibility that he could go back and say, oh, the police, they coerced me into saying it. Oh, they pushed me into a confession. No, he gave up evidence that only the murderer would know.
Yep.
So he solidified his fate.
Yeah.
And he did. He got on the stand and he testified against them. Not only did he tell on them, but he literally got on the stand and testified against his mother and then his brother.
Yeah.
Which leads into
his mother. 6 months later, she decides to take a plea deal as well. Now her plea deal, she says she had nothing to do with the actual murders themselves. Like she was part of the planning and like all the other stuff, but she didn't actually kill anybody. And I think the son Jake backed that up too. He's like, no, that's right. Like it wasn't her that did this part. Like she was a part of the other stuff, but she didn't do any of this. So she was part with like the conspiracy stuff and the tampering, the perjury.
Yeah,
all
her
that stuff.
charges, so she pled guilty to conspiracy, aggravated burglary, which I don't understand because there was nothing missing,
No.
tampering with evidence, forgery, unauthorized use of property, unlawful possession of dangerous ordnance, and then in exchange of that, all the murder charges were dropped.
Yes.
So when she went to trial, her son had backed up that story, like you said, where she helped, but she didn't pull the trigger.
Yes.
So her sentencing, let's back up. So Jake got life in prison. Angela,
it was supposed to be life in prison without the possibility of parole, but when he was sentenced, the judge did say he could be eligible for parole after 27 years. That was one of the things the judge put in because he cooperated so much and gave them all this information. He said, you know what? It might not happen, but in 27 years, he might be freed from all of this. So,
which is weird because that's less sentencing than his mother had got. His mother, Angela, got 30 years recommended.
Recommended. And I think it was an agreed upon 30 years between her and the courts and all that. So,
yeah. And then I do question Jake's sentencing because you're right. In the beginning, they did say that he could file for parole. But then as of January of 25, so January of this year, they changed it to life without parole.
So they changed it again?
So I wonder if something happened in prison or if, I'm not sure why, but something happened where they ended up switching it and changed it to life without parole. Then Angela got 30 years. And then we move on to the brother.
Yep.
And the brother's next in all of this.
He stayed adamant that he was not guilty. He did not have any part in any of it. And, he had no part of it. That's what he said. Even after everybody else was like, well, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
And everybody was cooperating, giving all this information, and you're still not going to. So that goes to trial.
Yes. And his trial lasted for months. I think they said it lasted for a total of like 3 to 4 months. And what I didn't understand was the brother, so George, he actually was found guilty on 22 counts, which is more than Jake and more than Angela. And some of his were like aggravated murder. And when he ended up getting sentenced, so, Jake had life without parole, we'll say now. Angela had 30 years. The brother, George, he ended up getting 8 consecutive life sentences without parole and then 121 additional years.
Yeah.
But why?
He didn't go. He probably would have been better off if he would have taken, a plea deal and said, yeah, okay, I'm guilty. Like, because that's, look at Jake's sentencing. He got off with a much less. He's still life in prison, but they went through the whole trial because he didn't,
So you think it's because he didn't roll over and testify against his family that they just kind of they threw the book at him?
Yeah, well, they let his fate lie in his own hands. Then if he could prove his innocence,
but that's insane to me. Angela, I understand, but I don't understand. Like she didn't get life. But he literally did the same thing. I mean, him and Jake, they pulled the triggers. They killed these innocent people. And one, to start out, allegedly. Well, no, they admit. Well, Jake
he didn't admit to anything. Yeah.
George did not. Yeah.
Neither George Sr. or Jr. here. Neither one of them admitted to ever doing it. So. But
Jake says that him and his brother pulled the triggers. And like, why did Jake not get the same sentencing? And I get, working with the police and things like that, but BS, like you took 8 lives, you planned it. And
I'm not saying you're wrong. Yeah, I would absolutely. He should be in jail for the rest of his life too. He admitted to killing 5 of the 8 people. So he should never be outside of jail ever.
That's more than 50%. So it's insane to me that he got, I don't want to say a slap on the hand, but he got a lot less than what I feel he should have. So the brother was sentenced to 8 consecutive life and 120 plus years.
Yeah.
So he's just going to rot away in prison until he dies.
Yep. Well,
and then go ahead.
No, he's never going to see the light of day again.
No. Well, and then we get to the father. So Billy, we'll say, because his name is also George, but Billy, so the father, he also denied ever having anything to do with it. Even though Jake ratted him out, Angela ratted him out. I'm pretty sure both grandmas might have said, like, yeah, we kind of know they did it. But he also, along with his son, he to this day says that he is innocent. He had nothing to do with it, never planned it, didn't know it was happening.
Bullshit.
It reminds me of that little meme. But the thing that's crazy with him is he was one of the cases that kept getting pushed out because of COVID, and then the courts being full. And then I know it kind of goes into one of the things that you were texting me about earlier was the location.
Yeah. So this trial,
talk about that, because that's insane.
This hasn't even gone to trial yet. This happened in 2016, and he's still awaiting trial because they're in a battle over a change of location, because he thinks everybody here now knows all of this and everything. A change of location is needed to, give him a fair trial.
Yeah.
Fair. But,
fair. Well, and they're fighting over it.
Yeah, they're fighting over it still because, I guess they're all the way up to the Supreme Court of Ohio now to try to get it to happen. But like every other court so far has denied any of that, like any motion to move the trial anywhere. So yeah, he hasn't even gone to trial yet.
And he was originally scheduled, I think it was like January of 25. Then he was scheduled for May. Then it was June, and it still hasn't happened yet. And
we're in December now. So
yeah. And the last I read is he was fighting his attorneys were fighting to actually get his trial completely out of the state of Ohio, because they were talking about moving it within Ohio, but he doesn't even want it to be in Ohio because this case was so big. And like you said, he does think that the jurors are going to be swayed. But you have two people that said you did it. There's mountains of evidence. And you're in prison anyway.
You're not gonna get away with it, I think so.
No, I don't think so.
Not if your own family's testifying against you.
Right. Well, and then they're trying to say, even when the trial does get scheduled, another thing they're fighting is they want to keep it as an unspecified county. So he doesn't want it publicized. He doesn't want social media, news outlets. He wants nothing there. And that's part of the issue is, those are public records.
Yeah, good luck with that. Although the public records being a thing in this whole case has already been an issue from the very beginning, because look at how hard they fought to the media wanted them to release the autopsy results, and like they would not because of all the secrecy and like the case and all that stuff. So it's been an issue since day one. Is just the media circus involved with all of it. So
yeah,
I get it, but at the same time, too bad. Just it's not going to happen. So just deal with it. Hey, how we even give him a choice anyway is beyond me. But,
no, I agree, because he's also being charged with 22 counts, including the 8 counts of aggravated murder. And the fact that he's pleading not guilty, and yes, why are we even giving him an option? Like, I feel, and this is a whole different topic, but like, what a waste of resources and money when there's no way your entire family was involved in these murders. The dad, the matriarch of the family just somehow was uninformed and left out.
Yeah.
I just don't.
I don't buy that.
No, I don't believe that either. And I do have the full rundown of what they were sentenced. So like we talked about, Jake was life without parole. Angela got the 30 years that was recommended and accepted. George, the brother, got the 8 life sentences. Billy's still pending. Rita did end up on probation, and then Federica got nothing. But I think this whole case, to have all of this happen over a custody battle is insane to me. Insane. Because all this family did now, okay, you want to be a part of her life. I get it. I understand. Everybody does. But now, for selfish reasons, you just ruined this little girl's life.
Yep.
She's never going to know her mom or her grandparents and that whole side. Now she loses her dad and that whole side. So it's like, did you really believe that you could get away with, sorry, my kid's coughing in the back. It's not a ghost, I promise. It's a coughing little 9-year-old. But that was part of the thing that baffled me about this case is like, these people truly believe that they could get away with these murders.
I mean, they did for a minute. I was reading that, like I said, they dyed their hair. They went as far as to buy like shoes just for that night, and like they were sizes that were bigger than the shoes they would actually wear. So they were walking around in like clown shoes, basically, to try to like hide any kind of evidence they could hide. Excuse me. That's how thought out it was, like to do things like, and like I said, like hiding the silencers, they built like concrete things for a boat for like anchors to hide them. Like they put these in the concrete, and then that's where they were. Nobody was ever going to find that stuff until they did.
Well, and I don't know if they decided to do all 8 at one time to try to pin it on the cartel, because Jake and his family were aware of the extracurricular activities going on the properties. So they were aware of that. And I don't know if they tried to play off of that with like the cartel and all of that stuff. But also, when you're taking out 8 people of the same family that close, and it wasn't like extended, it was young family, women, men, it was a variety. Like, I don't know. I just feel like if it was a cartel hit, it would have been a little bit cleaner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
It wouldn't have been the entire family, because if the cartel is going to do a hit, they're doing it to send a message. You're not going to kill everybody and be like, oh, there we go. No, you're going to take 1 or 2 to send a message to get that person to continue to do what you want to do. But hey, I'm not old. That's my uncle, by the way, calling me old in the chat. But so they did their research. They really did their research, and they did prepare for the murders. But if they were trying to pin it on the cartel, I think they went about it entirely the completely wrong way.
No, you don't wipe everybody out at that point. You're pinpointing 1 or 2 people that are involved with that. And that's,
well, and you don't even take out the people growing, like, let's be honest, if you're cartel, you're not taking out the people growing the drugs you're selling. If you're trying to send a message, you're going to take out a kid, a brother, you're not going to take out the person producing for you. No. I mean, come on, we all watch enough documentaries to know.
I've watched Ozark before.
A message sends a message. Yeah. But yeah, so with you not knowing about this case, because like I said, this case was huge in Ohio. We've known about it forever. And we have kind of seen it unfold. So we have seen it from the beginning to now, waiting for the father to be convicted, which I think he will be. But as a newcomer to the case, like, what were your thoughts? What were your opinions? Were you surprised, or did you see it kind of?
I saw how it played out 100%. Like it all makes sense once you realize the things that were going on behind the scenes with like the custody thing and all of that. And then obviously, it doesn't get any easier than somebody just taking a plea deal and spilling the tea. So it was all right there in plain lettering at that point then. But
I have to say too, if my son talked me into doing something like that and then ratted me out,
I'll be pissed.
I would be pissed. I'd be like,
Yeah.
listen, like I birthed you, I helped you do this, and then you're gonna turn on me.
I do have some questions though, because like he said, he admitted to killing 5 of the 8. Who actually did kill the other 2 or the other 3? Was who? I'd like to know that. I mean, it's not that it really matters, but like who really did that? Because obviously neither of the other 2 are admitting to any of it. So
yeah. So hold on.
Oh, I thought it was a ghost. Turn the light on.
He's 9 and he still likes to go into the bathroom and leave the door wide open. And gotcha. With as sensitive as my microphone is, you guys would have got to enjoy the sound effects. So I had to yell at him, then shut the door. See, there you go. So I did read, but I cannot confirm that it's true or if it's rumor. But one of the articles I read is that Jake admitted to those murders, and he said his brother pulled the trigger on the others.
Okay.
So he did kind of, in a roundabout way, say his dad was there and his dad was involved, but he's saying that him and his brother are the 2 that pulled the triggers. Now, again, I don't know if that is a true statement or if it's just a rumor and people are posting it, but I did see that in an article.
So that'll definitely make the father's trial interesting if that's true then. Because that could change everything. But
yeah, because
sorry, go ahead.
No, well, because if they do find, or if the brother eventually admits that he pulled the trigger and Jake pulled the trigger, I think the dad's still going to go away. But he might be in the same boat as Angela where he gets 30 years. Yeah. But he might be sentenced 30, 40 years, but he's also going to receive time served, I think, if that happens. But
which Angela did that. They gave her time served for however long that's been already. So
yeah. But the problem is it's Jake against those 2. If they both say we're not guilty, we had nothing to do with it, it's a he said, she said game. And with their surveillance, I did not find, I know they had surveillance tapes, but I don't think they were ever able to truly see and pinpoint who physically pulled the triggers. I think they could see who went into the houses and came out, but I don't think they could say, we saw you pull the trigger.
No, and that's what it'll come down to for that last trial. Ultimately, it is interesting because it leaves a whole debate there. But whenever that trial starts,
well, and at least he is away. At least he's in prison. The only thing is that I hate when things like this get drawn out because I feel so awful for the families. Because now, if you think that little girl is old enough to know what's going on, I mean. She was 3, I think, at the time. So she would be almost 13, 14, depending on time of year. So now she's well aware. And now this trial, it's going to hit the news again when it finally happens. And this poor little girl and the rest of the family is going to have to relive this again.
One of the things I thought was awful during like somebody's testimony, they said they saw members of the Wagner family at some of the Rhodes family funerals after they killed them. I said I get it because you want to be there and make it look like you're there for your friends and whatnot, but to be able to be the ones that did it and go to somebody's funeral, I don't know how you do that. That's tough.
You know what though? They do say when someone is murdered, they'll tell the investigators, just stay at the crime scene because the perpetrator always goes back. If you think about some of the cases, like, this case, they went to the funerals, the Idaho murders, he drove past the house in the morning. I'm sorry, but if I just butchered 4 people, I'm not going to Alaska, but I'm not driving past the house to see what the police are doing.
A lot of the things they did were giveaways after the fact for this, so.
Yeah, but they do. They always say that the killer wants to see the work or they want to see what's going on or they want to see how far the police is going. And they do. They end up inserting themselves in some way, shape, or form, and they end up getting caught that way a lot of the times. So, yeah.
Interesting. It was an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, it's a sad case, but definitely an interesting one. I promise, I will post the 911 video on Facebook, since my brand new computer, did not want to play it. I think
you need to get a hold of Spectrum and see what's going on with your internet.
Well, and I'm sure too, it's probably, Cameron's probably got the TV running and the iPad going and the Alexa going, and there's probably a lot of things on the internet right now, which is slowing it down, but we'll get it worked out eventually. Yeah. But before we go, so we got a couple things. We've got Carlo on next week.
Yes.
And
who owns Beale Manor.
Yeah, so Carlo Zuzik, he owns Beale Manor in actually Fremont, Ohio. But he just recently took ownership of 2 new locations that haven't hit the paranormal field yet. And he's coming on to tell us about those locations. So I'm really excited about that. And I want to get to those locations because I know how good Beale is. Yeah. You haven't been to Beale, but you need to get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We have to.
We'll get Tom. We'll drag him.
Tom's gonna hate that location because he's gonna hate that location, especially if we do solos. The reports of full body apparitions at that location is insane. I am pretty sure most people who go see something, and out of the 3 of us, that's gonna be Tom for sure. Tom, yep. And then we have Hanover Paracon, the end of January. So we will be broadcasting from Hanover, interviewing, broadcasting, going live, doing the same thing we kind of do at a couple of different Paracons. So we will be there. And then I know the one that we are both looking forward to, and it's so far away. And you made a really cool video. I'm going to play it before we leave. But the Underworld Culture Con.
Yes.
That one's coming to that. Yes. And that one's in September of 26. We'll be there again. Yeah. Broadcasting, going live. There's panels. There's readings. There's going to be a lot of special guests, especially one of your favorite people. There's a bar crawl. There's an investigation. There's a lot of things. And it's paranormal, but there's metaphysical, there's horror, there's urbex, there's really pretty much anything for anybody. And the tickets are available. So they're on sale. Actually, when we play the video, the website will be running across the bottom, but you can buy tickets, and they would make a really great Christmas gift.
Yeah,
I know that. Plus, we'll be there.
Yeah.
But.
Oh, let's talk quickly. I think one of the things we're going to maybe do after the holiday, we want to talk about this whole, if you haven't watched it yet, the Diddy Netflix special, watch that, because it was done really well, 1, and 2, I think that's something we could talk about after the holidays. It'll be one of our episodes, because there's a lot to talk about there.
Well, we plan on covering Diddy, but we also, if you have not watched the Diddy special on Netflix, watch it. Because Nate and I watched it, and now we have been sending 50 Cent memes back and forth because we want to be his hero. We want to be his level of petty sometimes.
He's a personal hero of mine now. So
okay, did you hear? This is completely off topic, but did you hear what he did to Ja Rule? Where he
bought the tickets, bought the first 3 rows of his concert, so nobody was sitting in the front 3 rows of his concert.
He hates Ja Rule, and they've had this ongoing battle. Yes, so he found one of his concerts. He bought the entire first 3 rows, I think maybe 4 rows. So when Ja Rule came out to perform, there was no one in the front seats. And I was watching an interview, and he said it with such a straight face. I was dying, right? And then someone goes, okay, you have this feud. Name one good thing about Ja Rule. And he goes, well, he's alive. That was it. So
that was great. I love it.
But yes, we will be covering that case, which has a lot of different insane.
Yeah, I have to rewatch that thing. So if you haven't watched that, I recommend that one yet.
Yeah,
on Netflix. So
But with that, thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Clearly, I need to figure out something with the internet or put Nate in charge next time, maybe. And I'll be, passenger princess. But
yeah.
With that, I hope you guys have a great night. I'm not saying it because I giggle every time, but we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.